Howdy. We are going to be ranking all of the characters in the Harmony Path for Honkai Star Rail because, I just felt like doing this. Not most people, that's not an accurate statement. Some people aren't fans of tier lists, and I mean, it's understandable. It's not exactly the most accurate assessment of most characters because of all the different criteria that you can rank them by, but generally speaking, you can still fill them into at least a couple different categories of criteria when you're ranking them. So they are of some value, not just in for say a newer player and they want to see what's at least in some level categorically better than something else, but also just to see people's thoughts or ideas on different characters, and you can also sort of get a grasp for what they value in a character or anything really in a game. So we are doing the Harmony Path first, and I'm actually going to do all of the paths. Remember, it's going to be a short ass video, but if you find this interesting, then let me know. If you don't, then leave a fat dislike and a mean comment so I know. So I could not freaking sort this by just the ones I wanted. Don't know how to remove images, so we just put the harmonies at the top and we're gonna go through them. Now, just for some clarification, we're actually gonna add one more row. Okay. And I want to clarify each row because it doesn't necessarily mean a character's bad if they're in A tier or B tier, right? That doesn't mean the character's bad. You can still use them, all right? SS is like crazy good. They probably will never get fully power crept. Probably never gonna happen. They're just ridiculously strong and work in almost every scenario, and they're just a little too powerful. S tier, really freaking strong. Normally I wouldn't even have anything above S tier. S tier is supposed to be the top, but SS is literally just broken, okay? But S tier is like the apex of greatness, not counting broken shit. A tier is really good. B tier it's okay. C tier is I could use some work, and D tier is trash. All right, now let's go ahead and get started because we got a few to go through, and I do want to be expound upon. Yeah, I think that's right. We're expound upon why I rank them in each area. Now, first off, Asta, I'm going to put in B tier. Now, with all of the 4 stars, this is going to be assuming that they are at max Eidolons, right? E6. I think Asta is actually really underrated. I think a lot of the characters, especially the 4 stars, a lot of the characters are really underrated. And Asta's one of them. She gives a very hefty speed bonus to the whole team. She can get a lot of energy regen. You can put DDD on her, so you not only get a team-wide huge speed bonus, but a team-wide action advance. And she can give a really large bonus amount of attack, which is also to the entire team. Now, her main restrictions, or issues I should say, are skill points. She's got a skill point issue. She's very skill point negative. And also that you really need the enemy to have fire weakness if you want to make full use of her. Otherwise, you're kind of screwed. In a situation where they have fire weakness, or if you can implant it with, I don't know, Silver Wolf, okay, or Anaxa, then that does help her a lot. Though she is outshone by many of the other Harmony units, unfortunately. Though I do think she still has value, and in some cases, she could fulfill a niche in certain zero cycle clears or something that other characters couldn't quite do. Though I still would like it if she maybe got a buff one day if they end up doing any 4-star buffs. Now, Ting Yun is, my bias wants to put her in S tier, but we're going to put her in A tier because I feel like it's more realistic. She's very strong. She's aged really well. She's obviously not as high up on the tier list as she used to be. She's not like apex of the meta as she once was in 1.0, but she is still a very strong character. She gives a large amount of energy to the selected character you give, right? Be it like your DPS or another support, right? Like your Robin or whatever. She gives a very considerable damage buff. She gives a nice attack buff. She has an additional damage instance for not just more damage, but it looks like in the future we may get some more gimmicks or mechanics around additional damage, specifically since it is labeled as a separate thing now within the game. She's very, very, very easy to play. She uses Dance, Dance, Dance extremely well, as most Harmony units do. And she's got a nice speed buff on her ult. If with her E2, like 20% speed, she can give herself a speed buff. She's all around just a very strong unit. Where she lacks is that her buffs aren't quite as potent as many of the newer Harmony units or buffers in general. And on top of that, she's also only able to buff one character at a time, where somebody like Robin or Tribby can buff the entire team. And I wouldn't say like the whole meta is revolving around teams built where the whole team is dealing damage, but many of the best teams are like that. Especially like, I mean, she doesn't work for Super Break, and Super Break's not like meta anymore, but a Super Break is a good example for a damage engine in which every teammate is doing damage. So to only buff one character means she's kind of forced into hyper carry playstyles. That doesn't mean she's bad, she's still very strong, and I really like using her with Clara or Yun Li, but she has seen better days. Still very, very good though. Bronya. Now, Bronya is, again, my bias wants to put in an S tier, but I know it's not realistic or fair. But Bronya is still very, very good. I see people put her lower. Now, I should preface that I'm not going to assume E0. I mean, we're a couple years into the game now. I think that Bronya, you should assume you can at least have some level of Eidolons or like her signature Lycone. She has a lot of room for improvement. Her E0 isn't that great, but with E1, it helps with her skill point economy. With her signature, helps with her skill point economy. She can get her ult back faster. She gives a huge, huge damage buff. Her issues lie in that she gives an attack buff as part of her buff, which is not, it doesn't work with a lot of the new HP scaling characters. And she's kind of split between buffing the whole team and buffing one character. Like the ult works on everybody, the skill only works on one person, it also only has a one turn duration, but she does give a bigger damage buff with just her skill than someone like Sunday, who is, most people see him as like a direct power creep to Bronya. And she does have a niche that will never, ever be taken away, which is she's a Harmony unit with a full action advance that can action advance another Harmony unit. They will never add that into the game again, because if they do, then you could put Bronya and that character in the same team and they can action advance each other until they just get their ults and use their ults and just repeat the process while consuming 0 action value. That would be broken. That's why, like, Sunday explicitly states he can't advance forward another Harmony unit. So she will never be power crept in that regard, because they would quite literally break the balance of the game. I know people like to say power creep's insane, they already break the balance or whatever, but that's just a whole nother level of break the game. So they're never going to do that. That would just be the dumbest thing ever, and the Chinese player base would likely be very mad with a lot of backlash, and Hoyo does not like it when the Chinese players are mad at them. Still though, very good character. Very, very good. She is going to work better with newer characters that perhaps don't need 100% uptime on buffs, because, I mean, you know, fine on wink wink if you look at leaks. Though she does still have some issues, but her E2 is another thing that is a little niche that she has. Unlike Sunday, he does not give a speed buff. Bronya's E2 can give a 30% speed buff after you advance the character's action, your teammate's action. 30% is huge, huge. A full action advance and a 30% speed buff, that's actually pretty freaking nice. So she's got her little niches. She can actually use Sunday's light cone as well, really well. Very, very nice. But I think I've spent too much time on her, so talking about her. She's really good, not as bad as people say. She deserves more credit, but could be better. HMC, putting them in S tier. People don't think they're as good as they used to be. I think a big part of that is just because you can't have HMC at the same time you have RMC, right? It's either Remembrance or Harmony. You can't have them at the same time, which is unfortunate, but they are still very strong. Now, as someone that has an E0, S0 Fugue, I'd say they're pretty comparable, and at times, I actually think HMC is better than Fugue. Like in Firefly teams, I like HMC more than my E0, S0 Fugue. I feel like I do more damage, I clear faster. They're just a better unit for that case. Now, for someone like Rappa, Fugue really works better there because of the extra super break bar or toughness bar, because it works around Rappa's gimmick for energy back and getting stacks when she breaks a bar. But for someone like Firefly, HMC can work better depending on the scenario, but they're still very strong, and I would at least put them on par, on the same level as Fugue. And because they are a Harmony unit, they can take DDD, which is really freaking strong. So very good units. Probably never going to be fully power crept. They still have some use. I mean, we only have 2 super break enablers still, Fugue and HMC. So if you want 2 super break teams, you gotta use him. Very nice. And he has pretty massive personal damage as well. Like really big personal damage. And because he gets his ult back so fast, you can really spam DDD as well. In the right scenario, you could get it 2-turn ults. Crazy. Yukong, D tier. Highly unfortunate. I love Yukong. I use Yukong. Still, one of my favorite funny teams that I use still to this day is Yukong, Clara, Yun Li, and Huahua. And the reason I did that originally was because I did not have Robin, and I needed a buffer that buffed the whole team with good stats that were actually worth having. I didn't want to give speed to the team, right? Ron May gives speed and would mess up my speed tuning. And I needed to buff both Claire and Yun Li, so like Ting Yun didn't work, Bronya didn't work, though she has Ash Fans, I didn't want it anyway. Asta doesn't work, Sparkle doesn't work, and Yukong was the only one that worked. It was either Yukong or Robin. I didn't have Robin, because Tribute wasn't out. Still though, I have to admit, she's not good. She has very poor uptime. She is extremely skill point negative, very skill point negative. On her release, she had good personal damage, but nowadays, she doesn't, right? Like with the HP inflation and the damage going up with characters, the power creep, she does not have good personal damage anymore. She just isn't good, and it's highly unfortunate because I really like her character. She's got a very pretty design as well. Next is Hanya. Hanya's B tier. She's pretty good. She gives a really big speed buff. You can easily keep 100% uptime on to one character at least. Gives a good attack buff. She's very skill point friendly. She can make skill points for the team. She can give a damage buff, or at least more damage on the enemy that's got the burden on it. Kind of sort of a debuff more than a buff. Still though, very good character. I really like her. She's another one that takes DDD really well. DDD is just, it's too good. You have to take it into account when talking about Harmony units. There really isn't a lot to say about Hanya. She's got a very straightforward kit for the most part. I mean, there are like, you know, different like techs or gimmicks or whatever you can do with her, but for the most part, she's got a very straightforward kit. And I like that. I like that she's simple. She's not as good as the other Harmony units or a lot of the other Harmony units, but for a new player, Hanya's actually pretty damn good and can get them by for quite a long time. So definitely one worth keeping your eye on if you are a new player and you don't have all the other like 5-star Harmony units. Ron May. S tier. People say she's seeing the end of her days or coming near it. I can kind of see that, but she's still very strong. She's very universal. She works on pretty much any team almost. She's still meta in Super Break teams, meta in that team. That team, Super Break itself isn't meta necessarily anymore, but in those teams, she's like the premier support for them outside of an enabler, which would be like, you know, HMC or Fugue. She does take DDD decently, not as well as some of the other units though. You can, with the right setup, have 100% uptime. She doesn't need her light cone. Honestly, I think her light cone is bad, or at least on her. She's got a really good E1. She was just given out for free with the anniversary, if you chose her at least. She's very good, and I really like her. Now, I do think she will get power crept at some point in the Super Break niche specifically, because despite what a lot of people have been saying since Super Break became a thing, she is not made for it. That is not what she exists for, or at least I do not believe it is. I think she was intended to be a universal support, not as a Super Break support specifically. And you can see that because she gives a skill damage buff with her, a damage percent buff with her skill, and one of her traces increases that substantially. So both a big trace and her skill are focused around giving a damage percent buff, which does nothing for Super Break. Why would they do that if she was a Super Break specific character? So she'll probably get power crept at some point. and replaced in the Super Break team with a character that is fully centered around Super Break, which makes sense. I mean, she came out at a time when Super Break didn't even exist. But for right now, she is still very strong, and for the foreseeable future, it will probably stay that way. Sparkle. Now, I think most people would put Sparkle in A tier. I don't think anyone's putting her in B tier. I mean, some people would, but I think most people would say A tier. The reason I put her in S tier is because she's got a lot of room for, like, I guess you could say skill expression, or, like, you know, some really niche stuff. It is niche, but like zero cycling stuff, people use her a lot because she's very good for being a pseudo speed increase to your DPS with her 50% action advance and a hyper speed build. And she also is the best DDD user in the game, always 3-turn ults. It doesn't matter if you skill or basic, she gets the same amount of energy because of a trace that makes her get the extra energy on her basic. She will always be able to get a 3-turn ults at the minimum. And that just makes it really easy to spam DDD, especially because you also build her with a crap ton of speed. She's not like crazy good, but she's still quite strong and works really well in a lot of teams. She's skill point friendly, which is nice, and just a lot of zero cycle videos you see Sparkle. Sparkle is still universally used all of the time in zero cycles. Now, that's not to say that matters completely, since most people don't do zero cycles, or I'd say the majority of people probably don't even do the end game, period. But still, it's worth taking into account when you talk about like her power or how useful she is. 3 units remaining. Robin. Robin would have been here at some point. I don't put her here anymore though. We put her in S tier. Now, I think some people will disagree with that because it's the same tier as these 3. So, I mean, I guess we could put her at like the top of S tier. But she's really good, but we're entering an era with a lot of HP scaling characters. And she gives a huge attack buff. She does not work for HP scaling. And while she is very strong, she does have some drawbacks. Like, I mean, Bronia's Lycone works fine on her, but she does really, really like her signature. Not that most characters don't, but she like really likes her signature Lycone. She does have room for vertical investment with her signature E1 and E2 all being very big increases to her power. But she also needs a lot of attacks. If you don't have frequent enough attacks, you won't be able to keep 100% uptime on her ult, which can be an issue. So between that, as well as only working really all the way with attack skillers, means she's not really quite as universally insane as she used to be. Still very, very strong unit with her ungodly attack buff, very good personal damage. She's still the best support for the follow-up engine. Really good character, but I'd say she's a solid S. Now we have Sunday, also going to be putting him in the S tier. A lot of the time he's a better Bronya. Now, I already said Bronya has her niches, but in most cases, Sunday will be better. He just gives a ton of crit rate, crit damage, damage percent. Damage percent with his ult. Skill points, he's skill point positive most of the time, especially with his light cone. Dude, he's very skill point positive with his light cone. He gives energy. He gives everything. And the really nice part about it is most characters can make use of it. Notice how he doesn't give an attack buff. That means he works with HP skillers. He gives crit rate, crit damage, damage percent, and energy, and a full action advance. None of that is stuff that doesn't work on an HP scaler. Now, it doesn't really work on Super Break, but, you know, HP scalers, attack scalers, if they're crit scaling DPS, they're going to make use of Sunday. He is very, very strong, and his light cone is one of the best light cones in the game. And he also fits into the niche with the memo sprites and stuff. Now, memo sprites / summons, they are 2 different things. Either one of them, though, he can fully advance them, giving him another little niche or gimmicky sort of thing. Not gimmicky, but it's not really used all the time. I don't think that's his sole purpose. When he came out, people thought first and foremost he was a summon harmony unit, right? Summon specific to buff them. And secondly, a Bronya upgrade. I believe now that he is first and foremost a Bronya upgrade, quotation marks, and secondly is good for summons. but still that's there, so he's got future potential with any new Memo Sprite characters that come out in the future. Solid S tier. And finally we are on to Tribby, the last character, and I'm sure you already know exactly where she's going. Top of the meta. SS tier. Crazy strong. E0, S0, she's already easily the best Harmony in the game. She also has the strongest E1 of any character in the game, buffer or not, period. Much more so when you just take into account a Harmony unit. It's ridiculous how crazy her E1 is. Her signature light cone is really good, but also unnecessary, and in a lot of cases it's actually worse than DDD because she gets energy crazy fast and can spam DDD. So she's really good, and all of her buffs work with everything in the game. She gives Res Pen, one of the rarest buffs in the game, which works on every type of damage, including Super Break. She also puts damage received on the enemy with her ults, makes a zone, so it's not a debuff on the enemy, it's a zone that applies it to the enemy, so it works wave to wave, and damage received is not the same as damage percent, and it works with, what do you know, everything, including Super Break. And it's another very rare type of damage increase. So she is very good. She has like no diminishing returns with her buffs. She has crazy good personal damage. Even in single target scenarios, she's very strong. But then in AoE scenarios, she's ridiculous. Like, she should not have come out as strong as she is. Very good character. I have an E1 S1 Tribby. I only pulled her light cone because I was bored. Honestly, it was probably a mistake. I don't think people should pull her light cone. Honestly, yeah, I don't think it's worth pulling her light cone. Her E1, on the other hand, definitely don't regret that. It's really good. Really good. But yeah, crazy good. Now, I think that's it. You know, that's the whole tier list for all of the Harmony units. I think I'm pretty comfortable with all of their positions. Nobody in C tier, because I don't feel like any of these characters fit into C tier, or how I described it at the very least. SS tier, there's only going to be like 4 characters as we go through all these tier lists that I put in SS tier, and Tribby is one of them. I wonder if you can guess who the others are. If you made it this far and you haven't seen the other videos yet, depending on when I post them, because it may be all at the same time, then leave a comment guessing who you think the other SS characters are. It's only like, I think, 4 or 5 that I put in that tier. But that's going to do it. If you liked the video, leave a like and subscribe if you found it useful or interesting. You know, I guess that's cool. Also, if you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments. That's going to do it though. Adios.